Welcome to this flight of the Retail Pilot. I'm your host, Ken Pilot, former CEO and current brand advisor, retail tech investor, and board member. I'm thrilled to share with you the insights from some of retail's legends and leaders, as well as my perspective on retail today. This podcast is sponsored by the following. Predict Spring is a global point-of-sale platform live in 22 countries. The platform includes mobile POS, endless aisle, fulfillment, inventory management, and clienteling, creating a true omni experience for customers and associates. Predict Spring powers Suit Supply, Converse, Lovesac, Decium, Janie and Jack, and Bouclair. I'm here today with Mickey Drexler on this flight of the Retail Pilot. Mickey, it's been a year, a little over a year since we last connected on the Retail Pilot.
Wow.
And you actually started this series off. So I wanted to circle back and see what's happening at Alex Mill.
Well, to be brief, we've had changes in merchandising and management. I say changes, small changes, and that has made a very large difference, which always does, the team being critical. In terms of the business, I'm in a very euphoric state today. Why? Because the month of August and now in September, what we've been working much to have happen, right goods, the right presentation, the right marketing, it's come together. And it's the moment, and I'm very superstitious about this, it's a moment in time that I hope and think will stay. So the bottom line is very happy with the responses from our consumers, customers, business for us. And I think we're a bit on an island here is very strong. And we're just chasing business and doing what we always do, but it's paying dividends right now. We're much less unknown. There's a lot of word of mouth, and that's always, to me, the most important because a friend validates a brand. So it's good. And I think if you go online, you'll see big differences, but we're never there. So I don't want to sound too sure here.
Mickey, I've heard that before. I know you're never quite satisfied with it.
That's right. In fact, they think I should be out there, but that's the way I am.
Clearly, you're doing something right, Mickey. The September results for retail sales just came out, and overall were flat, with apparel being slightly down. So Alex Mill is running a trend that's counter to the trend we're seeing out there at retail in general.
I have the story I tell is that half the world is on sale in the middle of September, the old key fall back to school month. And you can get so many deals, quote unquote, online. In a lot of cases, you can't get them when you're in the shops, which to me breaks all the rules.
Oh, and the Instagram posts, I've been on Instagram, I get the feed. It looks, are you, if you're actually getting sales or people buying off of Instagram, or you're seeing an increase in traffic to your site? You said online is working well.
Every day we only have two shops once East Hampton closes. There's a write-up. We keep track of where and how people have heard of us. I would guesstimate that Instagram drives our number one awareness. We do TikTok. We're new at it. We hired a very experienced TikTok guy. And then there's the emails. But I still like word of mouth. And you can't measure that. But you feel in the air right now. You feel it. And the numbers reinforce that. And I think competitively, designer, kind of not affordable to most, and our quality and value is there. So
we're going to have a conversation with your team today, speaking with Ali and Alex and Somsack, and focusing a lot on one of your key obsessions, which is the customer, what the customer thinks and what they're reacting to.
Well, it's in addition to that. That's fundamental. That's price of admission. But the most important part, in my opinion, is where is the puck going, as Wayne Gretzky said. You skate to where the puck is. I had someone here, team member, they said, I just bought this. It's a great item. It should have been in, I'm a color freak. And I said, what colors are you doing that in? And she said, was it off? A greenish and a navy, maybe. I said, why only two? She goes, well, they were the best selling colors. And I said, how do you know this wouldn't? You got to buy what you love and that turns you on. Give them the colors. What looks better than 10 great colors?
Mickey, this is like the first chapter of your Gap playbook here. Okay?
Right. Exactly.
We love it. Key items, get behind it. I said that, it's very interesting. I was in Paris, 6 months ago, and I was walking by the Zegna store, and they happen to have this one shoe that is really like it's their sneaker loafer.
Yeah.
In 10, 12, 14 different colors.
There you go.
And it was like a luxury company that's getting behind a key item presentation.
Yeah. Well, this is an odd example. I have labs, and we started with one. Then we went to two, and then three. And when you're walking with 3 labs or 8 colors, oh, how cute are those labs? 3. Down to 2, they're still cute. A single dog didn't get much attention. But think about twins and triplets and colors. So there's an impact. So less is more, except when you have doggies. Less is, but they're all yellow labs.
Well, do you remember the name of the dog that we used or you used?
Yeah, sure. From J. Crew.
Well, J. Crew, and then also the Old Navy commercial.
Oh, my God.
It was...
J. Crew was Henry.
You had Henry, J. Crew, and I think we had Magic for Old Navy.
Magic. Henry was a stuffed little dog. We were desperate. Madras patches. We couldn't find for the first J. Crew catalog when we had the new team in. We didn't want to put typical sale goods. Henry the dog. I'll never forget this. White page catalog. In the bottom right-hand corner, we put Henry the dog. And the reason is it would get a hell of a lot of attention, more so than, big. Little is big. Less is more. There you go.
But it's exciting to hear that the changes being made, both on the team and the product, are starting to really pay dividends. I want to end with this question. Mickey, with an incredibly successful career, how would you like people to view what you've accomplished and contributed?
First of all, incredibly successful career. I don't know how many others but me feel they're still climbing the mount, that they never get to where they want to be. It's good news and maybe it's bad news, but I love what I do. Steve Jobs, my old friend, he was always climbing the mountain. Unfortunately, he was taken from us too early in the world. The biggest compliments, and I've said this publicly before, is being called a mensch and a mentor. That to me is kind of completes the picture for me. And if I can affect people's lives in an important way, then I get a lot of nachas. You'll have to translate that. But
there is no translation for Naches or Rahmanis, but it just means great feeling and internal happiness.
Yes, I agree.
Mickey, we all learned a great deal while working with you at Gap or J. Crew. Your focus starts with the product. Without the product, everything else doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good of an operator you are, how pretty your website is, how efficient the team is, because no one will take advantage of all of that if there's not an emotional connection to the product. And it's interesting. I think Gap has had that problem for years on end, creating an emotional connection to Gap brand, or recreating rather, I should say. And maybe recently they found a way to do it, to leverage collaborations, which they've done so well. And perhaps that's adding to their mix and creating some connection for the customer. Any thoughts on that?
Oh, the other thing you left out, it's a product, but it's nothing works without the team. Nothing. And it's a team that has operating skills, technology skills, manufacturing skills. If you take one of those away, and design, then the product becomes much more difficult to see.
There's no question I'm saying, though, but that's the execution. Without having that golden opportunity with the right product,
that's the price of admission.
It's just not going to make a difference.
The price of admission. I couldn't agree more.
And I can still sense the energy, how enthusiastic and passionate you are about being a shop proprietor. I know that you're in there every day making a difference. There's no taking off. There's just full speed ahead for you.
Well, I don't want, this is very positive and complimentary. But, when you do what anyone does, everything's not hunky-dory. I mean, there's worry. There's trying to beat yourself. And I don't know anyone in a real leadership position in any organization who doesn't feel a tremendous responsibility to move forward and keep it moving forward and making certain that you build a great team, because then it's over too. But I want you to know, or whoever hears this, I've made many, many mistakes, as you well know. And you learn from your mistakes and you just move on. But I don't want to I still have to prove myself.
Along the way, you've had a lot of support from the teams you've hired to family. You want to opine on that maybe a bit more?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the teams. Peggy, who I've been married to for many years, has been a great partner, a great advisor, a great reader of people. And I thank her for that a lot. We have, sometimes we disagree. Hello. But she's been from day one, okay, we'll move to San Francisco. My last day at Ann Taylor was Friday. I'm on the plane to San Francisco on Sunday. There's a whole funny story that follows that. And the kids, first of all, having kids gives you another, as you well know, it's kind of another part of your life. And one thing I miss about having my two kids out of the house, they don't like when I call them kids, but they'll always be my babies, is your days are not filled with all the kiddie activities. The soccer game, singing in the car on the way to breakfast, the old songs. But, and friends, one of my biggest enjoyments now is schmoozing and chatting with people, because I didn't grow up like that. I grew up, very shy and quiet. So,
Mickey, I'm going to land this portion of the retail pilot and pivot to your team and understand a little bit more how you're helping them find the true north. My first conversation is going to be with Ali Dillon. She's the president of Alex Mill. Ali, welcome to the Retail Pilot.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to talk with you.
So share with us just a little bit about your retail journey and your connection with Mickey.
Sure. Yeah. So Mickey hired me 20 years ago, right out of college. I graduated, I remember Memorial Day weekend, and I started on June 6th. And it's so sad that I remember that, and I'm dating myself here. But part of the reason I remember it is because it was my work voicemail on my desk phone. It was my, my passcode 060605. So it's just clearly a day that's has stayed with me, is important to me. And, Mickey interviewed me that day. And quite honestly, I thought I was going to take a job in finance. I had an interview at Lehman Brothers and an interview at JP Morgan kind of the same day. And the second I walked into the J. Crew office, I was just enamored. I was hooked. You could feel kind of the passion and the energy reverberating through the walls. And I remember that day I interviewed with Jen Foyle. I interviewed with Trish Donnelly. I interviewed with Tracy Gardner. I interviewed with Libby Wadel. And then I interviewed with Mickey. And he gave me a piece of paper and he said, "Why should I hire you?" He passed it across the desk. And, and I wrote my response and he slammed his hand on the table. And that kind of started my journey. So I worked with him for 12 years and then he left J.Crew and I stayed on for a little bit longer. Then I went to Gap. I was there for 5 years, ultimately overseeing all merchandising for the brand. And then this opportunity presented itself and I couldn't say no. So here I am.
So when Mickey was thinking of bringing you to Alex Mill, did he interview you again? Was it a quick conversation? What went down?
Yeah, sure. So, we always kind of had our continuous rapport, even not working for him anymore while I was at Gap. And even while I was, kind of in between, I was always talking to him. Actually, between my time at J.Crew and Gap, there was a 6-month non-compete I had, of which he assured Alex Mill was not a part of. And I actually did the first season, Somsack's first creative direction season. I did the buys for that. So we've stayed really, really close. It's one of the biggest accolades I would say that I had in my career, that I could call Mickey Drexler, or he could call me and ask for my feedback. So it was kind of a funny thing the way that it happened, but ultimately they had a need for someone to join the business. I said I would join on a consultancy basis because, anyone that's known Mickey for as long as we have knows that when you get to this level where you can go back and forth with him, you like to keep it. And I was quite frankly a little bit worried about what that might turn into. But I joined, on a consulting basis, and I was here for about a month until I realized the opportunity for the brand and what everyone was doing was so big that I just couldn't say no. And I loved the idea of working again with him. So there was no interview, no formal interview. He basically called me and said, "When can you start?" I think I came in a week later. I said, "I'll do it for 3 months. I'll just kind of help and let you guys know what I think." And, then I signed on officially a month after that.
Describe your role as the president, how you balance passion for product with operations, and then the Mickey factor.
Right.
We'll come back to the Mickey factor. Talk about first product, operations, your role.
Yeah, sure. So we have a small team here, really small team, 25 people, close knit. And, my role as president is really to make sure that the cross-functional team is all kind of moving in tandem. I'm really responsible for executing on the product vision, on the strategy, on the growth. And, that I think that the exciting part and the part that's easy to me about that role is when you work for Mickey Drexler, even from the time you're an assistant merchant, you are an owner and you're accountable. And at J.Crew, even when I was, the assistant merchant of men's shirts, it's the ownership and the accountability fell on the merchant. They were the person in charge. They were the kind of executive decision. They were the one keeping the team in the old school bicycle wheel. Merch is the center of the wheel and everybody else is a spoke. So, coming into the team, it's been easy to kind of make that adjustment because it's just on a bigger scale. You're really just taking that vision that design has, working with all your cross-functional partners and executing against it. We can talk about the Mickey factor. Obviously he brings an energy and exhilaration and ideas, challenges, and we really have to make sure that we're prioritizing against all the incredible challenges that he has to execute on the vision, because there's so many good ideas and we are a small team trying to make everything happen. So that's just a way that we kind of incorporate everything he says. I think I learn from him every minute of every day. And I think the team feels that way too. It's really just about taking it all in, synthesizing it and saying, okay, what are we going to tackle first? How can we do it best? What feels Alex Mill? What's our take on it?
With Mickey's creative energy, and he shared with us how he's learning every day, which means he's teaching every day.
Every day.
How do you take this inbound and focus it for the team? Because I don't believe, at least from my experience, that you can drink that much water in a day. You've got to ration it a bit. You've got to provide
a fire hose. It's like getting out of a waterfall. You're in Niagara Falls is what's happening a lot of the time. Listen, I think the thing I admire so much about him is even in the most exhausting moments of ideas coming your way, there's really something to grab onto. So whether it's focusing on a key item, whether it's being best in class customer service, whether it's making sure that we're standing for the best quality in everything we do, the curiosity that comes through him, I think does get, kind of through a process of osmosis put into the team. And we do have to just re-huddle after some of those meetings. And that's my job, is to say, okay, here are the challenges. Who's going to own what? What can we execute against? And how quickly can we do it? Because, with him, speed is of the essence, and every day is an opportunity. And we even had something that came up last week. It was late on Friday. I think, it's 4:30 on Friday, kind of close to the traditional close of business, although it is a 24/7 job and operation working with him. But I said, yeah, we're going to huddle on it first thing Monday morning. First thing Monday morning. What are you talking about? We can't huddle on the first thing Monday morning. We have the entire weekend of sales that we might be missing not doing this right now. So needless to say, the change occurred by 5:30. That day we had our website kind of incorporated some of the feedback that he got. So we're always looking to just take advantage of the opportunity that we have. I think where Mickey's challenges come from is doing the best thing for the customer. It's always about the customer and meeting them where they're. And so, when we really believe that there's something to that, we execute on it quickly. Now, he and I just got into something else around our pre-orders and ship sales. And I have to always sometimes, stop and say to him, okay, I hear you, but let me just take this back with the team and repurpose it for you in the way that you're getting. And then he totally gets it. It's not about him being right. It's about the inclination that he has. And are we doing everything we can to satisfy what the customer wants from us?
Last question. With the team that's running as quickly as your team is running, and with Mickey's providing this creative oversight and ideas, how forgiving can the atmosphere be, or what's your role to create a forgiving atmosphere for mistakes that can be made for people who are trying to run, walk, chew gum, design, plan, allocate?
Yeah, that's right. So, with a passion for product and a passion for the customer comes a very passionate environment. Everyone who works for Mickey knows that. And so I think part of it is understanding that leadership and that guidance. And my role too is being able to say, if there's a heated moment, okay, let's take in what we're really trying to achieve here and understand that heat of the moment is really just translating into the opportunity that we have. So it can get, impassioned in this office. But I think when we also see the results that come from a lot of those challenges, it rallies the team behind doing it. And Mickey is, as much as he puts challenges on the team, he's such a celebrator of the team. For as many emails as we get saying, this could have been better, why do we do it this way? There is an email that says, I love this. This is perfect. I couldn't do this without you. You're all incredible. So I think it's always keeping those moments in stride, when the moments are a little bit more heated. But again, that's my job, to keep the team moving in the right direction, to take all the challenges and ideas that he has and know that we're really doing it for the growth of the business, which ultimately will benefit the entire team, but we really think is for the customers.
I would think one of your greatest challenges in your role would be to say no to Mickey. A lot of yeses, but the no. Can you give us an example, or when was the last time you said, Mickey, we can't do that, or we can't do that now?
Yeah, we prioritize all the time. So one thing that we recently talked about was adding hang tags. He wanted to add hang tags to every single garment. And, this is something he's been asking for. And we had to remind him that in past companies that we worked at, one, we had entire teams dedicated to what those hang tags look like. We had
a hang tag team. We had a hang tag designer, a hang tag.
All the way through the art direction, the copy, the fact finding, all of that stuff was kind of critical to one, executing it. Two, we also had to remind them that it's a digital world, and not everybody, as amazing as hang tags can be, not everybody's looking at them. It also takes a long time. It doesn't allow us to be quick. So, he came back, he was in Marfa, Texas. He came back with this amazing hang tag that told this story of a Native American brand that he had found. And it's why can't we do this? And there's so much passion. And it's well, sure, we could do it. We can do anything. But the right thing for us to do right now is focus on having the best digital expression, communicating to the customer through our emails, through social, through all of these other messaging touch points. And he's okay, got it. We won't do it. We won't do hang tags, So I think, those moments are that we get to say no aren't that often, but he absolutely listens to the team. He looks to us for advice, and he knows that, we will look to him for the same. And I think having that balance with him is critical.
So you can definitely hear what he's saying, even without the bullhorn.
I can hear what he's saying without the bullhorn. I don't need the loudspeaker anymore because he's an arm's length away from me. At times, as you just probably heard, we have to actually almost remove ourselves from him. So yeah, we get it. But I think when I think about the loudspeaker, G Crew, one, it was my first job, so it wasn't abnormal to me to have that. I think when I'd say to people, we have a loudspeaker, they'd be like, what? The great thing about the loudspeaker was it created a connection. We had 4 floors at J.Crew. I know you guys had multiple buildings at Gap, but we had 4 floors, enabled everyone to be connected. And it was a two-way street, by the way. He could page us, but he was accessible at 8001. All you had to do was dial that number and you got right to him. So that just created the sense of connection. And I think that permeated throughout our building. And that it also, kind of reminded us to be connected to the customer and be connected to the stores, because he had stores that were coming through across the country. When we opened in London, when we were, in our stores in Canada, he would page them in, and all of a sudden they were here, they were in the office, they were having the same conversation issue. So as kind of wild to look back on that loudspeaker time of my life it really, I think, just rings true to a big scale or small scale. The connection in the office, the connection to our stores, the connection to the customer is critical.
Well, it sounds like you have a great community there that you and he are building and continuing to build. Ali, thanks for your role today and glad to have you on the flight.
Awesome. Well, it's so great to chat, Ken.
Perfect.
Okay,
Welcome
great.
to the flight. We've got Alex Drexler, founder and customer experience officer. Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ken. It's been a pleasure to be here.
It's great to see you. I know we had a chance to connect a few times and talk about business and all things happening. What's exciting you today about business at Alex Mill?
Oh, I would say that what's exciting for me at Alex Mill is this connection we have with our customers. I would say that we're constantly building this big community through influencer, through customers, through different mechanisms. And I feel like that's very exciting for the company.
And you started the company before Mickey was involved. This is really your baby. You're the founder. How has your vision for what Alex Mill was going to be grown and evolved to what Alex Mill is today?
Alex Mill started with the idea of trying to find the perfect shirt. Despite all the shirts out there, I still couldn't find the perfect shirt. So we ended up creating it. And it was a very tightly edited capsule of men's items for a number of years until Mickey and Somsack came around. And then we, developed a full collection of items. I think what hasn't changed is our obsessive idea of trying to perfect these great items. Whether it be a work jacket, a jumpsuit, button-down shirt, we're still there trying to create something for the daily uniform for our customers. So I'd say that has sort of continued in a different scale, but we still have that same sort of philosophy.
With the time that you've been there, the company's evolved, it's grown from a point where you originally were probably doing everything. Today, where are you really spending most of your time? And how are you finding where your value add is?
Right. So I'd say I'm spending, it is a small business, I will say still. So, and one of the benefits of a small business is you get to wear a lot of different hats, whereas when the businesses get bigger, the roles get more segmented. I spend, I would say, a few different areas. One area I spend a lot of my time in is marketing. I'm quite involved in, the day-to-day of the marketing. I also involved in some of the operations of the business. Again, business like ours really allows you to wear many different hats. Thirdly, I would say I'm also involved in some of the new store openings.
You're really touching the customer in many places, either through marketing, through the stores. The experience, as we talked about, is very, very important to you. Share with us a little bit more on the marketing front. I find it very interesting what's happening today out there, whether it's social media, what's happening in stores, even connected TV. But specifically, I'd love to know how you're actually differentiating between Instagram versus a TikTok. How do you see each, and what are you doing that's different for one versus the other? I think the marketing area to me is really quite fascinating because there's so much that can be done relative to reaching the customer. In particular with social media, Instagram really was the dominant rail, but now we also have TikTok. How are you viewing the two, or do you have a separate strategy for Instagram versus TikTok?
Well, to be completely transparent with you, we're still in the early stages of TikTok. Whereas Instagram, our strategy is very much fleshed out and enhanced. And, we spend a bit more resources. We will, starting this summer, be focusing a bit more on TikTok. I would say one of the important attributes that falls across both Instagram and TikTok is we really want to get the customer to have a sense of a feel of what goes on in our own office. So you'll see a lot of photos of team working, to try to get an inside sense of what's going on here. So whether it be, as I said, our team working or, a team member modeling some of the clothing, you get really a organic sense. And with TikTok, we're going to push that even more. So we're going to have even more, instead of we won't be showing campaign images, for example, we found that doesn't perform as well on TikTok, and again, we're still early on in TikTok, but we'll have an even more enhanced with different videos of what's going on. It'll give you like a bird's eye view into what our offices are like.
That's cool. Are you finding any traction with social commerce? Are you selling product through Instagram?
We are selling product through Instagram, but I would say our number one channel through selling product is email. I do have to admit that, but I do feel that Instagram really helps create a viral buzz about certain products. And, people are constantly scrolling through their phone. They see something they like. They will then go onto the website and buy it. So I do feel that there's a definite viral buzz on Instagram, but I still think email remains our top seller.
It's interesting. There's a thing called UGC, user-generated content. It seems like you guys have developed OGC, office-generated content, where you're really celebrating the people at work. And it's interesting, I get the impression from the Instagram spots that you guys do that the employees there really love the brand and love the product. And that really comes through and it makes it feel very authentic.
Well, thank you for saying that, Ken. That's actually something we're very proud of, is that ethos we've created, the team spirit around what we do. We're very passionate about what we do and you can see it through the Instagram. And I think that that's something that's really special about us and and the community we've created.
As you look out through the balance of 2024, what are some of the campaigns, product releases, things that you're most excited about that are going to touch the customer?
So a few things I would say. One of them I'm most excited about is we're going to be doing another denim campaign coming up. We recently launched denim a couple of months ago. It was a big success. We're planning something else big for denim in the fall. We have a collaboration in the work with a woman who's sort of an influencer. We're creating a little capsule collection with her. We have a collaboration coming up this fall. We have a big focus on denim that we're doing again. We're talking about a work jacket campaign. Work jackets have really helped drive our business. They've become a critical part of the DNA of the business is the work jacket. And, we're looking into doing something like that. We're always, we're talking to a store in Brooklyn about doing a little event together. So, there's a lot of different things. We're always tapping into the community.
It's a lot of energy in Alex Mill, and you sense it whether you're in store or online. And I know that you're behind driving a lot of it along with the other members of the team. Alex, how do you work with Mickey in terms of hearing his creative ideas, sharing your creative ideas? Clearly, you've got some lineage there, but it works different. So what's your strategy?
I would say my strategy is to, listen to everyone's opinion, talk it out with Mickey. I think it's important not to always go with your intuition and your gut on certain things because, there can be a lot of opinions, a lot of different takes, but I always want to really try to push what I think is right for the brand, like my gut instinct. You know what I mean? So I think in a creative environment where there's a number of different opinions, sometimes it can be a lot of back and forth, but I always try to sort of go with what I think is right. You know what I mean? For the brand. And we always come around, even if there's a disagreement or whatever, everyone has the same goal in mind. And that's what's so great. We all want to grow the business, do what's best for the customer. And so we always come around and end up in the same place.
Positive creative tension can yield great results.
Yeah. And there doesn't have to be tension necessarily either. Just like a discussion about what we think. And, since we all have the same goal.
I'm sure Mickey gets very intimate when it comes to the models, the wearing of the product, how the brand messaging he's probably extremely close to and spends a fair amount of time around that piece of the business.
Definitely. He's very interested in that.
Alex, thanks for joining us today and just sharing a piece of what you do to make the brand what it is.
Thank you, Ken.
It's a great pleasure to welcome Somsack Creative Director at Alex Mill to the flight. Somsack, we're going to upgrade you from coach to first class.
Amazing. Thank you. That's always a nice upgrade.
It's always nice to get one of those when you're at the airport, especially when you don't expect it. So,
exactly.
Somsack, share with us a little bit more about your work experience and how you landed at Alex Mill.
Oh, definitely. I grew up in Canada, just outside of Toronto, and I got into college at Parsons in New York. And I came to Parsons in the 90s, mid 90s maybe, and was there for 4 years, graduated, and started my first job was at Diane von Furstenberg, and she was doing her home shopping network line. And I was like, amazing, because, she was like upstairs and she came down. And so it was like very, I was in touch with her and we worked together really closely. And then I was there probably for a year and a half. And then I left and freelanced. And I remember a friend of mine had a job opportunity at J. Crew that she didn't want. So she was like, would you want to try it? And I was like, sure, I have nothing to lose. And I ended up going and I met with Jenna, and the only things they had available were men's and accessories, assistants. And I had experience in neither. And she was like, you just pick whatever you want to do. And I picked accessories. So I started off at J. Crew as an accessories designer, assistant designer, doing socks and whatever else no one wanted to do. And then 3 or 4 years later, I became, director, or moved up to accessories designer, then director of accessories. And then by the time I left, I was the director of men's and women's, all of men's, women's, and kids. I definitely remember all of a sudden we were all called to a town hall and it was announced that Mickey was coming on board. I mean, the level of commotion that was happening that morning was insane. And I think what I loved, with him there, he kind of unlocked the keys to creativity and design. I think he was like, you know what, let's just try whatever you guys wanted to see, whatever you guys feel, let's just try it and see what happens. And then I think it was 2002, then I left shortly after Mickey left, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I just traveled a little bit, probably like 5 months. And then I remember one morning I was in line at Whole Foods on a Wednesday or something, and of course Mickey called. Up until then, he had been calling me weekly just to check in. He was my agent, my fairy god agent. We were joking, just trying to get me jobs here and there. And he was like, would you ever be interested in meeting, or do you know Alex Mill? I was like, yeah, of course I knew Alex Mill. I had bought some stuff and I was a huge fan. It was small. And he was like, would you ever be interested in meeting with me and Alex just to see, the brand has huge potential. Would you ever want to just meet and talk? And then we had our meeting, and I think within 2 months, we were conspiring and we got together and in the small office on Broadway, and we were rocking and rolling, as Mickey likes to say.
Talk to me a little bit about the design ethos, what you're thinking about and who you're designing product for as you look at the Alex Mill customer.
Definitely. I think having gone from somewhere really big like J. Crew and coming to someone very small like Alex Mill and having had the chance to take time off, it was a really good opportunity to reset and decide what I wanted, what I felt like we were missing, in the retail landscape. And I knew I wanted to work somewhere with a really edited point of view, not a huge assortment, but a great assortment. So it wasn't even just making a lot of more clothes, it was but making the right clothes and being able to spend a lot of time on each piece. And I think there was a lot of, I felt like, having talked to friends and family and people out in the business and customers, people were sort of craving that. They wanted to walk into the store and not have to swim through racks and racks and racks of stuff and try to find stuff, but to be able to walk into the store and say, and to be able to be told almost like, this is the shirt you need. These are the pants you want. These are the 3 sweaters you need. And so when we embarked on the first, sort of season, we came up with a line list and I made it as tight as possible. I think there were probably 5 shirts on the line, maybe 3 pants. But the shirts were like a small, medium, and oversized. There were 3 jackets. It was just trying to keep everything as tight as possible. So every time I designed something, every season ever since then has sort of been through that same lens. It's like making sure everything we put on the line is essential, that people need it. And it's not about changing things every single season. It's like, if something is great, why would you throw it out? I don't think customers behave like that. I certainly don't throw out everything every season. It's just like, is there an opportunity to sort of update each thing? And if not, that's great. So we won't. Maybe we'll add a new color here or there. And because it's still fashion, I think every season you still have to stick your finger in the air and get a little, see where the wind and the trends are going a little bit, because it can't be absolutely trendless, because I think people still want newness. To me, it's never, we're going to, let's say, India this season, but by way of this and this. It's very much more about the pieces. It's much more about the items. Let's make the best jacket for the season. What pant would you wear with this jacket? So on and so on.
Having recently been through the store continues to be highly edited, highly focused. Where do you go or travel, or where do you get your inspiration from?
Right. Various places, but I think within the last few years, the internet and Instagram have been huge. Like I can travel from my bed almost, every night I'm on my phone, and it doesn't take, sometimes obviously it's nice to go, but sometimes it just takes me to see one picture of one item being worn a certain way to spark some interest, and I think I'll screen grab that picture, take it to the team and be like, I kind of love the way this feels. And I just actually got back from a trip to Copenhagen, to Paris, and it was just, it's nice to go out and see what people are doing, but it's what you can't get on the phone is how people are wearing the things in live reality, and so I think it's nice to also travel. Traveling is always a great thing to do, just to see what people are wearing, how they're wearing it. So it's a combination of, I think those two things are the biggest things for me.
You and I share a similar experience, albeit a traditional one in terms of sourcing product. Yeah. And we've seen how long it could take to actually go from concept to delivery, typically a year for most retailers.
Yeah.
What are you doing to really shorten that life cycle and bring product to market more quickly and be more reactive to what's happening in the business today?
I think a really good example of what we've been doing has been our jeans launch. We, for the first time, did a launch with our five pocket jean, men's and women's. And so much of what denim is about is the fabric. And I think so much of the lead time gets tied up in fabric. So took months and months and months to find the right fabric. And so once we found the right fabric, it was about platforming the fabric, ordering a lot ahead of time. Because with denim, I think once you find the right fabric, you don't really need to go elsewhere for a few seasons. Obviously, there'll be new technological updates here and there, but I think the opportunity to sort of shorten the lead time was through fabric and platforming that and just ordering a lot up front. So the recut things, I think it was a good example this season where when we launched, we sold out really fast. And so obviously, once we sell out, Mickey's first question is, how can we get more? And so luckily, we were able to get a recut within maybe like weeks. I think maybe it was like 4 weeks. So that's pretty fast, because we had fabric lined up. And the other thing was just making it in LA, like having domestic and the shipping and the freight and all that stuff just cut the time.
You shared with me something I thought was really fascinating around creating newness, and you call it rework.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about rework, because I think that it's a very new version of the circular economy, and how product that may not have worked right the first time can get a second chance the second time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think being a small company, I think we've been able to do some really fun projects. I think rework is one of them where, after every season, I obviously still love the product that didn't sell because I still believe in it. I think it's a good product. So instead of throwing it out or reselling it, was there an opportunity to give it new life, to reimagine it, to sort of use our creativity and figure out a way to maybe have it feel new again and present it to the consumer who may have not liked it the first time, but maybe like it the second time. So we go through every season, we go through a list of things that didn't sell, and then we'll pick out things, whether they be shirts or jackets. We've done jumpsuits, and we work with a couple of local artists in a dye house in Pennsylvania. The first project was taking all those pieces and sending them to this dye house that uses natural dyes, all made from vegetables and flowers and stuff. And what used to be a white jumpsuit that may not have sold because it was white came out as a pink jumpsuit, and it was much more emotional. The colors were, beautiful. And so for a few seasons, we had these botanical dye rework projects that would just pop up on the website, and they sold. It wasn't a lot of units, which I think helped because it made everything feel more special. And the prices were higher than they were the first time, the first round. And they sold, and we were pleasantly surprised. And so we've just kept that project going, working with different artists. We have a project going with Jenny Cooper, who's in Brooklyn. She runs a coffee house, zero waste coffee house, and she's taken old shirts, chopped them up, repieced them, made a shirt with sleeves into a short sleeve shirt, reworked the stripes. And again, the units were small and they blew out again. So every season it's been just an opportunity to be really creative for the team. I get a chance to be like, hey, what can we do with this? sometimes it works, and most times it works. Sometimes it's that's a little strange.
As you look towards the fall, what are you excited about? What's the next big idea that you have for Alex Mill?
Oh gosh, I think there's great opportunity now that I think we're kind of known a little bit more than we used to be. We've been able to sort of figure out our key pieces and our key items and what people love. It's now about layering sort of like the icing on top. We've been doing these work jackets forever. We've done them in cotton. Is there an opportunity to do one maybe in Italian wool cashmere? I think sort of like, it might not be for everyone, but I think it'll draw a certain level of cachet to the brand, which I think would be nice. Suede is another opportunity, sort of these more luxe ideas. Obviously, value is important. Like, I don't want to all of a sudden have our prices be much higher than they used to be, but I think there's something to be said about getting, a good, better, best. And I think it's adding more elements of these bests. I think that could be really cool for the assortment.
Now, the $1 million question.
Okay.
What is your secret for success working so closely with Mickey and his ideas, and yet at the same time maintaining your point of view?
Yes.
How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about it a lot. I think obviously the partnership I have with him has been built for a very long time. There's a level of trust. I think when I say, I don't really love that, I think he trusts me when I say that. And sometimes when he comes up with an idea and I don't really get it first, I trust him that this might work out in the end. There's also, I learned this early on, and I remember hearing someone say this. It was like, when you do improv, you should never say no. Like, no should never be the first answer. And I think staying open, staying positive, staying open to ideas, yes, should be, the first answer. I think it sort of leaves you open to a lot of opportunities that you may not have thought of originally, but had huge potential. So just being positive and being open is key.
Somsack, thank you for sharing what you're doing at Alex Mill. We'll look for more success this summer and into the fall season.
Here's hoping. Yeah. Thank you, Ken.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's flight of the Retail Pilot. And please give us a review on your favorite podcast platform.